Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friendly Neighborhood Gamer. This is Brian or Bear, depending on where you know me from. Tonight, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite, I'm not going to even say one of, my favorite role-playing game. That is Burning Wheel. It is a loot crane game in the family. It is the big game that Torchbearer and Mouseguard are based off of loosely. And it's just one of my very favorite role-playing games. It's a bit crunchier than some people like. That being said, there are, I think, 5 different combat systems, 3 being melee, 1 being a range and cover, and the last one being a social combat, that we will briefly go over tonight talking about it. That is one aspect that I would like to talk about. Another one would be the beliefs and instincts section and how it really makes the role-playing a little bit more real. And then finally, we'll go over the post-game conversation and then the once a season session that the characters will have and how that affects character growth and cost and reward throughout the game session. So without further ado, we'll start with combat. Oh, hello. We're going to be talking about fighting. The first thing we're going to talk about is just melee combat alone in Burning Wheel. There's 3 different versions of it. I know that sounds excessive, but I mean, it's kind of cool. So initially there's the very simple martial combat, which is against mooks, if you're fighting goblins, something that is not a big deal. Your characters are big damn heroes, and they shouldn't have to waste time fighting through a lot of little guys. Simple dice roll, you get up and you move on. The second one is the bloody versus test, and it's a bit more detailed than the simple one, adding in armor, adding in skills, adding in the differences in lengths of weapons and that kind of stuff. It's just a little more minutia to the simplified rules. And this might be a decent combat. You would want to do this for quick combat, but not the big bad. The big bad, that's going to be the full combat rules. And all things Burning Wheel, that's going to require you to have a graph. Which, again, it might be a little daunting to look at, but when you get down to the brass tacks of it and like the combat system, not knowing what your opponent's going to do and being able to flip over what you're doing versus what they're doing and then comparing it, it kind of gets to be really strategic, and you've got to get into the head of your opponent, 1. And 2, me as the GM, I have to get into the head of the bad guy and say, okay, this is an orc. He would be doing this. Or this is a master bladesman, weapon master, whatever, and they would be using all of the arsenal they have at their disposal, versus an orc who would just continue to hack and slash. Make sense? We're going to jump over and look at the graph real quick, and I'll kind of talk you through it. And again, I get that this is probably a little daunting because it is a full graph, but if you're using a two-handed weapon, you would be looking at a great strike, and then you would just go down the line to see what your opponent used, and it would literally tell you what to do. It's not too simple. I mean, it's not too hard. It's pretty simple once you look at it. When you look at all of the things you could be doing, yeah, it's a lot. And this isn't even all of them. There are more skills and abilities than this. So it does make it a little bit more, but me as a GM being able to take this off of your plate and give you a pre-made card that tells you what each one of these things does, and you don't have to worry about the other things if you're not someone who uses a two-handed weapon doing great strikes, or if you're not a sword master who's doing feints, that kind of stuff, then a lot of this wouldn't even apply to you. But it's good to have it. So those are the 3 melee combats. The other combat I want to talk about now is the range and cover. This system has a whole combat system essentially just for shooting, which is interesting because it's a medieval-based game. There is magic, but bowmen, throwing spears, throwing weapons. Not to say you can't do those things in a melee system, the 3 melee systems, but a whole system for moving around and shooting at things, it really just makes it very obvious that someone with a ranged weapon has a clear advantage over someone who's got to charge up to you in melee. Because if I shoot you before you even get to me, there's no chance for the melee to even start. And that's kind of lost in the melee type combats. And it's definitely not lost in the range and cover. So our final combat system is called Duel of Wits. It's essentially fighting with words. Imagine that. There's so many times when someone makes a face, or like the face is the term that people use for someone who's the talker of the group, and then combat starts and you don't even get to really do anything. You're just kind of like, oh God, run away. But there's a whole combat system where you get to be the star, and it's more than just a dice roll being like, I lied to that guy, and I roll, you roll, and it's like, you lied to him. He believes you. Cool, move on. No, there's a whole intricate combat system similar to the full combat melee combat system with very intricate parts, almost like a paper, rock, scissors, but with a lot more steps. First, you have to come up with an argument that you're going to have with your opponent. You agree to the terms. If you win, this is what happened. If they win, that's what happened. And then you actually have a verbal combat using the skills that you have, and they have to come up with a rebuttal. A lot of times you roll that beforehand, so you automatically know if you pass or fail. So therefore your rebuttal or your comment could be weaker to let your opponent be stronger because you lost the roll. That's just good role playing. That really adds something to it. Now that being said, this is not a Jedi mind trick, and you can't just wave your hand over and do something that another character wouldn't normally do. And there's always the opportunity that I don't like the way this combat's going, so I'm going to stab you. So we can get right back into the melee combat. But it's just, I don't know, I've felt very at loss of words, no pun intended, with the combat, with the verbal system in a lot of games. And I feel like this being a combat system all around words is awesome. It really gives character design another way to shine rather than just rolling a dice and saying you pass or fail. Moving on. So the next thing we're going to talk about is a subject called beliefs and instincts. So in a lot of role-playing games, you'll have a general idea of how you want to role-play your character. In Burning Wheel, you have 3 beliefs, sometimes 4, depending on what your background is. If it's a religious background, you may have a belief based off of your God or something. And then you'll have 3 instincts. Beliefs are very open-ended. The example they give are usually like, I guard the prince's life with my own. I like to, a lot of times, take my beliefs and tie them in with other members of the group. So therefore, you have like that built-in character interaction. I have a Wookiee life debt to this person. Please don't sue me, Star Wars. Or that person secretly killed my brother, and I'm planning to their demise. So, and that brings another point to this game. There are no secrets amongst players. Characters may not know that I killed somebody and it was your brother, and now you're secretly trying to get me in a position to kill me. But the players know that, and it's kind of fun to set these things up and role play it out because your character doesn't know, and you're wandering around while this other person's trying to sneak up behind you, and then shenanigans ensue. Maybe they kill you. I don't know. But that's the actual role playing part of it. This game is not about. It is, but it's not always about moving the story forward. Sometimes it's about character development, and that's kind of cool. It's something that a lot of other games aren't doing as well, and this one does it very well. So beliefs usually are short-term goals, long-term goals, inter-party interactions. Those are all great things that can be open-ended and get your character in trouble. The opposite of that, instincts, is literally the opposite. They're very, if this happens, I do this. I never do that. It's like, it kind of set it in stone. It can be a way for you to get out of trouble with the GM. My blade's always ready. Bad guys come storming through the door. My blade's ready. You don't get to catch me flat-footed. And you get to kind of tell the GM, no, I have an instinct that blocks that. Or it could be a way for you to interact with other players. or always interact with the thing. Like, nobody talks crap about my mama. Well, that person just talked crap about your mama, and the first thing you do is come across the room and hit them. That person was a duke, and now you've got to deal with the repercussions of that. But that's good role playing because it took the story in a direction that it wasn't intended to go and made it interesting and fun for you and the other players, hopefully. These instincts and beliefs tie into the next part we're going to talk about. But the fact that there are no secrets amongst the group, everybody's coming together to build a story together, is just really something that's kind of cool. So the post-game session is something that was very alien to my players when I was running this game. Normally when a game ends, it's like, all right, guys, see you next week. Like, it's later at night, people are ready to go home, and they don't think about it. So as a GM, I have to kind of plan ahead of time, because at the end of every Burning Wheel, or most Luke Crane games, there's going to be a post-game session where you're going to talk about how your characters interacted. Did they do a good job with role-playing? And that's kind of where you have a group of peers, not judge, but kind of call you on your BS sometimes, or just really be honest with each other. I like the way you did that. That was funny as hell. That kind of stuff, and you get rewarded for it. Those belief and instincts, they're not secret. Everybody knows them. And when you do a good job role-playing that, or you have a belief or an instinct that gets your character in trouble and makes you have to role-play the situation more efficiently, you get rewarded by your peers, because it really helps to have something to reward you with. It really helps to bring the group together when you're following the instincts and beliefs. So while that's happening, you'll get awarded Artha, which is fate, persona, or deed points. Deed points are a little more, they're like the big points, but these are points that you can use throughout the game to change the way your character interacts with the world in better ways. So sometimes, like before a game would start, you would have a zero session and discuss when you would have a lull period. Usually after a big boss fight or something big happens, the group will take, I don't want to say another zero session, but it's a whole session of just talking it out. And you talk through how each person's playing their character, what you like, what you don't like. You look over your character's traits. And if there's something that a character has outgrown or no longer needs, the group as a whole gets to vote to have that taken off. And then you can, as a whole, the group votes to add something to it. So your character grows naturally, and your player group is there to help make that happen and make sure it's fun. Of course, the player has the last vote. If there's something they really don't want, they can veto it. But for the most part, like, your other players are in your corner. They want you to have cool things, and they want the character to grow. And if you've been role-playing them right, they'll kind of see the direction you're trying to go. So I don't know, it's another step. And a lot of people are like, we want to make things streamlined, we want to make things quick. I disagree. I feel like slowing down, stopping, and having a conversation about your session with your players in a group setting where everybody gets to chime in is really helpful to bring the group together. And that's one of the things I really like about Burning Wheel. So we've talked about combat tonight. We've talked about the role-playing aspect with beliefs and instincts, and then how that all ties together with the after the player session. And these are just a few of the things. There's so much more to this game. I mean, look how thick the book is, whether it be like the belief systems or emotional magic, with dwarves having greed and elves having sadness and orcs having hatred. Or even there's a whole other book after this that adds other races to the game, other life paths, and just it goes on and on. I can't say enough about this game. I really enjoy running it for folks. I may soon be running it online. I'll be posting about that. But if you want to run an in-game session in Raleigh, Durham, the Triangle area, feel free to reach out to me through Facebook Messenger. We can talk about pricing, and I can definitely set up something to come to your home or to a public setting so you can vet me. You know what? I really appreciate you guys watching this so far, and look forward to hearing your comments and feedback. And keep rolling those dices. I don't know what their actual phrase is, but you guys have a good night. Bye.